I'm sorry to bother you so late. I need to ask you a few questions for the Census Department.
At this time of night?
Deadline. We're working all night now. You're my last house. I saw your light. I came a few times.
Listen, let me get that, and then you can ask me through the door. Hey!
Imagine waking up tomorrow only to discover everyone you love is still standing right in front of you, but none of them are actually human anymore. They don't attack with claws or weapons. They simply wait for you to close your eyes, because once you fall asleep, there's no waking up as yourself again. A few days earlier, the sky falls. The space shuttle Patriot breaks apart on re-entry, scattering burning wreckage across half the country. News channels scream about possible alien contact, and most people keep their distance from the debris, afraid of contamination. Tucker Kaufman, head of the CDC, does the opposite. He walks straight into one of the crash sites, where scientists show him a strange organism clinging to the metal, something that laughs at radiation and multiplies as if it's alive. On his way out, a jagged piece of debris slices his finger. He barely notices. That night, the change begins. Tucker sweats uncontrollably, his face tightening as though something beneath his skin is rearranging itself. By morning, the man who used to be Carol's ex-husband is gone. Carol, a psychiatrist raising their young son Oliver alone, has spent 4 years keeping Tucker at a distance. So when he suddenly calls asking to see the boy, she hangs up without hesitation. After dropping Oliver off at school, she rides to work with her close friend Dr. Ben Driscoll, complaining about Tucker's sudden interest. Ben casually mentions that every researcher who worked at the crash sites has mysteriously quit. Carol dismisses it as paranoia. She has bigger concerns than conspiracy theories. At the office, her first patient, Wendy, confides that her husband doesn't seem like himself anymore. He recently killed their family dog without showing even the slightest hint of remorse. Carol writes her a prescription and moves on, but the disturbing story lingers in her mind. Halloween arrives, and Carol joins her neighbor Pam as they take the children trick-or-treating. Outside one house, a dog suddenly goes berserk and attacks Pam's son, Andy. Shockingly, the boy doesn't scream or panic. He calmly grabs the dog's jaws with his bare hands until adults manage to pull the animal away. Later, Pam admits Andy has been strangely emotionless for days. Carol reassures her it's probably nothing, until Oliver suddenly starts screaming. She rushes in and discovers a strange fleshy substance stuck to his hand. Alarmed, she immediately brings it to Ben's laboratory, where his colleague, biologist Dr. Galliano, begins examining the sample. As the tests continue, a mysterious new flu quietly spreads across the country, claiming thousands of lives. Tucker now addresses the nation's leading scientists, insisting that mass inoculation is the only solution. But behind the scenes, infected waiters secretly vomit the real infection into the tea that's about to be served to everyone in the room. Later that evening, Carol reluctantly allows Tucker to keep Oliver for the weekend. During the drive, a terrified woman suddenly runs into the road, desperately begging for help and warning that something terrible is coming before she's struck and killed by an oncoming car. When the police arrive, they simply tell Carol to go home. No questions, no investigation. Deep down, she realizes something is terribly wrong. That night, Carol and Ben attend a formal dinner with several diplomats, including Czech official Belisek, his wife Ludmila, and a Russian diplomat named Yorish. The conversation drifts toward humanity's darker nature and the violence people hide beneath the surface. On the drive home, Ben finally tries to kiss Carol, but she gently pulls away, unwilling to risk either their friendship or whatever mysterious illness is spreading through the city. The next morning, everything feels different. The streets are unnaturally quiet, strangers stand perfectly still with lifeless expressions, and every one of Carol's patients has cancelled their appointments. Ben urgently calls, telling her the lab has finally identified the strange organism. Carol rushes over, where Galliano reveals the horrifying truth. The fleshy sample isn't a disease at all, it's made of molecular spores that remain dormant until their host enters REM sleep. Once that happens, the spores completely rewrite the victim's genetic code, stripping away emotion and replacing the person with something calm, efficient, and no longer truly human. Their only chance of survival is simple: stay awake until a cure can be found. Ludmila suddenly calls in a panic, insisting that Yorish is acting strangely. Carol, Ben, and Galliano rush to the diplomat's house, only to find him in the middle of a horrifying transformation. His skin is mottled, his body convulses violently, and he barely resembles a human being anymore. Carol instinctively raises her phone to photograph what she's seeing, but the moment she does, Yorish lunges at them. Ben throws himself into the fight, struggling to hold him back as the infected diplomat suddenly vomits a thick stream of fluid before collapsing dead on the floor. Carol wastes no time. Convinced Oliver is in danger, she drives straight to Tucker's house to bring her son home. Instead, she finds Tucker calmly meeting with several expressionless men. He insists Oliver is spending time at a friend's house, but Carol doesn't believe a word of it. As the silent men slowly close in around her, Tucker suddenly tackles her and spits directly into her face, infecting her. She manages to fight her way free, crashes her car while escaping, and runs into a crowded subway station packed with passengers whose blank expressions make it painfully clear they've already changed. In the middle of the chaos, her phone buzzes with a desperate message from Oliver. Tucker has taken him. Save me. On the train, one frightened passenger quietly warns Carol to hide every emotion because the infected can recognize anyone who's still human. Moments later, more emotionless passengers board, and violence erupts. Carol barely escapes before witnessing police officers forcing healthy citizens into vaccination lines. One officer notices the sweat running down her face and secretly urges her to keep running, revealing that the infected never sweat. By now, the city is falling apart. Every familiar face seems hollow, every street feels dangerous, and nowhere is safe. Carol eventually reaches the Belisek mansion, where Ben and Galliano continue searching desperately for answers. Realizing time is running out, they decide to split up. Galliano heads for Fort Dietrich, hoping its laboratories can produce a cure, while Ben stays behind to help Carol rescue Oliver. Until then, there's only one rule that matters. No one can be allowed to fall asleep. As they drive through the city, they witness Wendy being dragged away by infected officers. She struggles desperately while they repeatedly shock her with a stun gun, yet despite everything, she never transforms. The strange detail immediately catches Carol's attention. They rush back to her office and search through Wendy's medical records until they uncover the explanation. Years earlier, Wendy suffered from encephalitis, and that illness altered her brain in a way that prevents the spores from attaching. For the first time, they discover a weakness. The organism only succeeds inside healthy brains. Another message from Oliver finally reveals where he's being held, his grandmother's house in Baltimore. Knowing every second counts, Carol admits the truth to Ben. Tucker already infected her. Even so, Ben refuses to abandon her. He helps her reach the train station just before the authorities seal off the city. During the journey, Carol unexpectedly runs into Oliver's friend Jean, but something about him feels wrong. He's already been transformed and is heading to the very same house. When the train arrives in Baltimore, Tucker is waiting at the station. Calm and composed, he drives both of them to his mother's home as though nothing unusual has happened. The moment he steps outside to answer a phone call, Carol begins searching every room until she finally finds Oliver hidden inside. To her enormous relief, he's still himself. The reason soon becomes clear. Oliver suffers from a sleep disorder and has spent years taking medication that constantly interrupts his REM sleep. The spores never had the opportunity to complete their transformation. Their escape doesn't last long. Jean suddenly attacks, trying to infect them, but Carol shoves him aside and grabs Oliver before racing out of the house. Tucker immediately gives chase, following them into an abandoned warehouse. Cornered with nowhere left to run, Carol spots an iron rod lying nearby. As Tucker closes in, she swings it with all her strength, striking him across the head and finally ending the threat. Mother and son flee the warehouse and eventually find temporary shelter inside a nearby pharmacy. Knowing she's already infected, Carol searches the shelves for supplies, fills a syringe, and hands it to Oliver with strict instructions. If she falls asleep, he must inject her immediately, no matter what. She then calls Ben, tells him exactly where they are, and begs him to come as quickly as possible. While they're waiting, Oliver almost opens a door stained with blood underneath. Carol stops him just in time and cautiously investigates the room herself. Inside, she discovers dozens of infected bodies lying motionless across the floor. Realizing they could wake at any moment, she quietly takes a gun from the room and seals the door behind her, hoping it will hold until help arrives. Night drags on as Carol fights to stay awake, swallowing every stimulant and pill she can find while exhaustion slowly takes over. Every passing minute feels heavier than the last. By morning, Terrifying pounding echoes through the pharmacy as the infected bodies in the next room begin waking up and throwing themselves against the sealed door. Oliver, still exhausted, finally wakes to find his mother unconscious. Remembering her instructions, he quickly grabs the syringe and injects her just in time, pulling her back before the spores can complete their work. A short while later, Ben finally arrives. For a brief moment, Carol is overwhelmed with relief, believing they're finally safe. But the feeling vanishes the instant she looks into his eyes. They're completely empty. Somewhere along the way, Ben has already been transformed. Calmly, he begins describing a world without hatred, violence, or conflict, a world where emotions no longer exist. Then, without hesitation, he unlocks the pharmacy door, allowing dozens of infected people to flood inside. Their target isn't Carol, it's Oliver, the immune child whose blood could stop the entire invasion. Left with no other choice, Carol opens fire, dropping one infected after another as they close in. When Ben steps toward her, she hesitates for only a second before shooting him in the leg, creating just enough time to grab Oliver and escape. The pair steal a police car and race through a city that has descended into complete chaos. Abandoned vehicles clog the streets, infected citizens swarm every direction, and every second brings them closer to being surrounded. Just then, Galliano manages to contact Carol with the coordinates of an emergency extraction point. A helicopter is waiting on a nearby rooftop. Carol pushes the stolen cruiser to its limit, reaches the building, and climbs to the roof with Oliver just as the infected close in behind them. Moments later, the helicopter lifts off, carrying them out of the city before the mob can reach them. Several months later, the nightmare is finally over. Using blood from the immune children, scientists successfully develop a vaccine that eliminates the spores across the globe. Those who had been transformed regain their humanity but remember nothing about the weeks they spent under the organism's control. Galliano later appears on national television explaining that the infection leaves behind complete amnesia, erasing every memory of what happened while the spores had taken over. Life slowly returns to normal. Carol has adopted Jean, giving him the family he nearly lost. Ben, now fully cured and with no memory of his actions during the outbreak, has reunited with Carol. Oliver and Jean walk to school like ordinary children, laughing and enjoying the simple freedom that almost disappeared forever. Ben sits reading the morning paper, completely unaware that he once tried to hand the last pieces of humanity over to the infection. After everything they've endured, Carol finally understands that those flaws were never humanity's weakness. They were its greatest strength. Well, if anyone around you suddenly stops showing emotions, maybe don't wait around to find out why. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next movie.